So a few housekeeping matters first of all. We expect to finish by 8 o'clock, and there is a Q&A session towards the end of the meeting. So if you do have any questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat during the meeting. But if rather than vocalizing them at this stage, if you could please wait to the Q&A session. And I think that's pretty much it for today, because it's a relatively small group. If there's any feedback that comes on during the meeting, I may ask for you to mute yourself to avoid the feedback. So the purpose of this gathering really is to give you more detail about why we want to work with you on this pilot study, and then to explain how the 8-week program and the study work, and finally what will be required from participants, and that would be you if you choose to take part in the 8-week study. So I'll share the screen now and start the presentation. So the goal of this study is the goal of the 8-week program is to provide you with a way to improve internal bodily awareness. And the reason why we're doing this is because we predict that when people improve their internal body awareness, it can help them perform better in everyday life. That's the main premise of our study. So we hope that participants, and that's you if you choose to be part, will benefit by being able to manage day-to-day stresses better, and we also expect an improved sense of well-being through training for inner body awareness. So to talk a little bit now about this type of bodily awareness, so that you can understand the rationale for the study. So we're talking about body awareness, but it's not just any type of body awareness. It's a type of body awareness that's known in the scientific world as interoception. So I'll explain what that is now. It differs from other types of body awareness. So first of all, if we think about how we sense anything, the 5 main senses which are most commonly talked about, sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch, they're generally associated with how we experience the world outside of our body. And then there's another form of body awareness that's referred to as proprioception. You may have heard of that if you've been to a physio or done any kind of coordination or movement work. Now, proprioception is when actually you can join me now in a mini kind of demonstration of this. So if you close your eyes and place your finger in front of your face and then aim to touch your nose, you're able to do that, or raise your hand above your head. You're able to do that and to know where your body parts are without your external senses, because of this form of bodily awareness known as proprioception. And that generally refers to the coordination of distant body parts. Interoception, which is what this study is about, is a different type of body awareness than proprioception. And sometimes the boundaries between the two are blurry, but for the purpose of this talk, we're saying that interoception is how we detect things that are inside our body, so internal bodily processes. So this slide here, this is taken from one of Jane Aspel's presentations, and it shows an animation of an MRI scan. So here you can see the big blob in the middle that's moving. That's the heart beating, and an animation of the heart beating. And what you can see is also around that heart, you can see other organs moving around. And at the bottom, you've got your kind of digestive system and the guts. And the reason for showing this is to show that, all the time there's things whirring around and moving and processes going on inside our body. So things that actually move, but also at the same time, there's lots of other things going on. So changes in levels of gas, oxygen, carbon dioxide, changes in blood pressure, and nutrients that we from food we eat, and level of hydration. All these things are changing all the time, and the brain needs to keep track of all these changes in order for us to stay, relatively stable as the world around us changes, and allow us to stay healthy and keep the conditions ideal for life. So the brain needs to monitor this, and one of the ways it does it is the body sends signals up to the brain, and sometimes we are able to experience them as feelings and sensations, and we can detect changes inside our body. So that's what interoception is. Now, you could say, what's the big deal? Of course, I know I feel things inside my body. Sometimes my heart races, or my stomach clenches, or I feel tightness in my muscles, or I feel pain. So that's pretty obvious that we feel things inside our body. But the point is, from a research point of view, is that what's known now is that there's a big variation between how people, and probably between how you and I in this group, experience our body. And this front cover is from the pop science magazine New Scientist, and it was from June last year. And the cover image was titled, or the feature article on the front cover was titled, "Your Thinking Body, Why Consciousness Isn't All in the Mind." And the article was about interoception research. And the main point that was made is that in the 20th century, science and neuroscience has tended to ignore the body, and neuroscientists instead have associated mental health almost exclusively with the brain. However, what this article and this front cover was trying to make the point of is that mental health is not all in our head. So it's in our body as well, or our body influences our mental state, our mood, and indeed our emotions. So I'll share a few kind of examples of how this is being studied now in science. So this picture here, this headline, is a bit of a fun example. This piece of research made its way to the Times newspaper, and it was research carried out in Cambridge. And the headline for the article was, "Traders who have the stomach for fight turn out to be the best." And in this research, what was done was they used traders in the kind of, if you think now of in the City of London, traders sort of trading on the stock exchange, they used them as a model for people in a kind of highly stressful, dynamic job where they've got lots of things to cope with. And they looked at how sensitive these traders were to signals, all those things we just talked about happening inside their body, looked at how sensitive they were to those compared to other people in other careers. And what they found out, they looked particularly at heartbeat detection. So looked at how sensitively and accurately they could detect their own heart rate without like putting their finger on their pulse. They just how they could count their heart rate, for example. And what they found out was that the traders as a whole had an improved ability to detect their heart rate compared to other people in other careers. And not only that, they also found that if you plotted the accuracy at which amongst those traders they could detect their heart rate, the ones who were more accurate and sensitive to this heart rate detection test turned out to earn the most each year. So it seemed to correlate with their profitability. And also it correlated with the length of time they survived in that stressful career environment. So there seemed to be a correlation with their, their performance and their resilience to the stress. So that's this cartoon was featured in the Times article, and for me, this, I've referred to this several times. Paige is probably fed up with me saying this, but it speaks volumes to me, because it says my gut instinct turned out to be indigestion. And this really, it's, one thing is the ability to feel what's going on inside your body, and the other thing is, how do we interpret those signals? So is it indigestion, or is it giving me another clue about something in my life or the world around me? So that was a example of a fun sort of relatively fun experiment. This is the title or the top of an article. There was a set of review articles in Trends in Neurosciences that came out at the end of 2020, so the end of December. And this looked at the role of this ability, interoception, in the pathology of mental health, various different mental health conditions. And they led to, to this and other researchers have claimed now that interoception could be a kind of P factor. And what they mean by P factor is a psychopathology. So how it's a factor in how mental health conditions develop that may have been overlooked. And these sets of articles, the reviews, looked at all the research carried out in recent years. And the take-home message is that for people who struggle to either feel or interpret what's going on inside their body, there's another correlation. So the traders example looked at kind of a positive correlation with improved interoception and improved performance. And these types of studies looked at it in the other direction. So people who struggle to sense what's going on inside their body are more likely to be suffering from various different conditions, including panic disorders, anxiety, eating disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, and even conditions such as schizophrenia. So what it looks like is if people are suffering from these things, and then they are there seems to be kind of some poor communication between the brain and the body. And how that leads to this study that we're doing. So if we look at all these conditions we just talked about, and also the think about the traders, then we're talking about how well people can perform in their day-to-day life. Really, if we try and summarize all of that, it's, can we work through problems? Can we overcome challenges? Can we move forward towards our goals? And there's all kinds of different spectrums of this, including relationship, how well we empathize with other people and deal with relationships. So this image here is it's a kind of slightly abstract way of looking at things. So it's on the left, we've got a kind of ball of string which is all tangled up, and on the right we've got something that's a little bit more orderly and it's easier to work with. So when we're trying to work through something in life, it's really nice if you've got a clear path and you can make sense of things and you've got a route to follow. Whereas when things are tangled up, then it's hard to know where to start. And if we think about that, about how we experience the world, so right now, each of us are having an experience of the present moment, and that that's put together from lots of different senses. So if we it's a sort of a bit of an artificial thing to do, but if we try and group those into three types. So one type in the lower left of this triangle is signals coming from our body, so that's interoception. On the lower right, it's signals coming from the outside world, how we sense our environment and the scenery around us, so that's our 5 senses. And that, that may be everything from what we're seeing of a stressful work environment, noises around us, as we sleep, the how the world changes as we move through it, and all kinds of other things that input into us from our external environment. And the top corner of the triangle is we've got a symbol of a brain here, but this really is to represent our cognitive functions. So our the thoughts, the meaning we assign to things. You could call it our sense. If you want to stick to senses, it's a sense of imagination. So all the things that we think about our mental functions, and we usually associate them with our brains. So that's why it's put at that corner. Now, going back to this slide of the tangled string, sometimes when we're struggling to perform or find a clear route forward, then all of these inputs can get tangled together, and it can be hard to separate, what we're feeling inside from what's happening outside, and the stories that our mind is creating around the combination of all of these things together. So it can feel a bit jumbled up like a ball of string. And what we're proposing is that to get a clear route forward, you have to start somewhere. So you have to create a little bit of a gap and find the end of the string and be able to put it into an orderly fashion. So we're saying, and this is the assumption of the study, is that by being more sensitive to what's going on inside our body, that's an inroad into unraveling this string, this bundle of senses, and being able to figure out a way forward. So you may say, what's new? Of course, I know I've got these feelings. I've heard of body awareness before, and you'd be absolutely right. So, and emotional awareness practices as well. You would be absolutely right. And there's some books here from therapists and psychologists. One is called When the Body Says No, and the other is called The Body Keeps the Score. So these are based on the assumption that the body holds on to stress in some way, and things, and we feel that, we experience that through our body rather than just through our mental functions. So it's not a new concept, and indeed this is just a snippet from a website showing a whole host. There's probably I think 50, 60, 70 different types of organizations and therapies on this American website, which use some kind of body focused therapy. So there's different, it comes under different names. Sometimes it's somatic, sometimes more technical, sort of sensory motor, sometimes embodiment. So there's lots of different phrases. And then we've got the forms of meditation that involve focusing on the body. Some types of yoga incorporate not just the proprioceptive coordination in the poses, but they encourage people to visualize and to focus inside the body. So there's lots of different approaches out there. However, there seems to be a lack of a common language, and this is where interoception research comes in. So it offers the opportunity to measure something tangible like heart rate or digestive functions, or something which can be measured externally by scientific methods, and also experienced by a person. And then from that, we can be a little bit more rigorous about how we try and understand all these different therapies might be working, and for different conditions as well. So that's where the research is at. The important thing to say is, though, there's a difference between correlation and causation. So all the studies I showed, the front of the New Scientist magazine and the other reviews, all those studies were looking at correlation. So they asked people to, or they looked at what people's conditions were or performance, and then measured separately their ability to sense what's going on inside their body, and looked for correlation. What we're doing in this pilot study is to look for causation, which is, if we train people to improve their internal awareness, does that then lead on to subsequently an improvement in either stress management or performance or well-being. So it's looking at the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken, if that makes sense, rather than just a correlation. So that's the rationale for what we're doing, and why we're doing it. So now if we look at how we're going to do it. So there's two parts to this. One is to ask participants to engage in an 8-week body awareness training course, and this is done online, and it's accessed remotely via an online website and with videos. So videos to watch, I'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. And then as well as watching the videos, so they're aimed at helping people understand more about the science of interoception, how their body works. And then the second part is experiential exercises. So they are an opportunity to practice internal body awareness and draw our attention inside our body, and actually to experience what that means. So that's the actual 8-week program. And then as well as that, and Paige is going to be talking a little bit more about this, is the measurements. So we'll be taking measurements before the program as a kind of baseline, and then some during the program, but mostly before and after. And those will be mostly questionnaires, the before and after, and also some measurements of heart rate. And that will be done via a free to download app, which allows the measurement of heart rate by placing the finger over the camera and the flash on a more mobile phone. And Paige will be talking about that. So that's how we'll be doing it. And now what I'll do is give you a little taster for the 8-week program. And then Paige will explain about the time commitments and other requirements from participants. So the 8-week program is structured around the theme of change. We've chosen that as a kind of topic, and it's aimed to take the participants on a kind of journey through body awareness. Each week has got a different topic based on change. I'll show you an example kind of snippet of some of the videos in a minute. But each week has got 3 components. So one of them is these informal educational videos, and they cover basic biology about how our bodies generate our feelings and how these relate to our problem solving and our sort of drive to stay alive, and how we manage our energy levels. So they're all sort of about maximum 10 to 15 minutes long, and they can be watched and enjoyed throughout. You don't have to do them at any particular time. They can be done at your own time and spread out throughout each week. Then there's some guided exercises, and these aim to bring attention into the body. And it's a little bit like, the idea is it's a little bit like developing any new skill or refining a skill. So thinking about someone who may have lost the sense of sight, then they can develop their sense of touch and eventually read Braille. And it's the idea is that by drawing our attention to something more, we can become more sensitive to it. So that's what the guided exercises are for. And again, they're via sort of video and audio. And then there's some self-inquiry questions each week. And these are a chance to sit back and reflect on what the information that's been shared in the educational videos and the exercises, and to think how internal body awareness may be relevant to our everyday lives. So I'll show you a sample video now, which was made a while ago. So it's a little bit rough around the edges. It is when I was trialing this. Hello and welcome back to the In a Sense Body Awareness Pilot Programme. What has a drop of ink dispersing in water got to do with body awareness and stress? We'll find that out later on, but first of all, let's take a whistle-stop tour of what will be going on during the next 8 weeks. So here are the titles for each of the 8 weekly sessions. There's a kind of journey we'll be going on together, all themed around the topic of change. I'll run through each of these very briefly now. In week 2, we dive into the science of interoception. For the purpose of this course, we're saying that interoception is a gateway to change. And that's because the overall premise of what we're working from is that paying attention to bodily sensations is a worthwhile thing to do for our overall health, our mental well-being, and day-to-day performance. So it's helpful to spend time characterizing interoception in week 2 because it gives you a credible explanation of how normal bodily processes such as the beating of your heart, the cycle of breath, the contraction of muscles and soft tissue give rise to feelings. And this is the starting point for understanding how your body responds to problems that have been bothering you or situations that have felt challenging, and helps you to understand how the practical experiential exercises that we're using allow for better self-regulation, and ultimately how you can integrate a new way of being into everyday life. Week 5 is titled Deliberate Change. In this session, we look at the scientific model that indicates that our brains are actually prediction-making machines rather than reaction machines. It builds on the idea of how the body communicates to manage its resources and energy budget, and suggests that evolution has figured out that it's more energy efficient for us to predict and correct rather than react. We'll see the place that feelings inside our body have in this ongoing generation of an anticipatory model of the world around us. We'll see how this relates to our inherent drive to move away from things that harm us and deplete our energy and towards things that make us feel good. So here we have a picture of an iceberg. Sometimes people say that the things we are consciously aware of are like the tip of an iceberg, and our subconscious is like the mass of the iceberg underneath the water. In week 5, we'll start to see how through the feelings in our body, we can gain more control of part of our body budgeting system that may previously have felt beyond our control. Okay, so that was a taster of the style of the videos. And for the educational content. And then there'll be similar videos, probably more audio files for most of them, for the experiential exercises. And they can last from anything from less than a minute up to about 20 minutes long. There's a library to choose from for the experiential exercises as well. So each week we suggest an exercise, but then there are options so that there's plenty to choose from, different lengths, different people contributing. We've got other therapists and yoga teachers, meditation teachers contributing their favorite internal body awareness practice. So I'm going to hand over to Paige now, who's going to talk about some of the commitments and requirements from the participants. So Paige, I'll just make you host. There you go.
Yep, it's still recording, so that's good.
Great.
Right, let me just get the PowerPoint up. Can everyone see it all right? Yep. So I'll skip this slide because that's what Ian has just said about how they'll range in duration, and that we're offering a library of different types of body awareness exercises. So I'll go on to the time commitment. So in terms of how much time you'll be asked to dedicate over the 8 weeks, it's estimated to be around 1 hour per week. So this includes the 1 hour for the content videos, like the sample video Ian just showed, as well as doing the practical exercises. That's a minimum commitment. We're encouraging you all to do more than 1 hour in terms of more of the body awareness exercises if you so wish. So that's why we had the variation in duration. So if you felt like you could offer more time one week as opposed to a different week, then that would be encouraged. So yeah, there's no upper limit. It's something that we want you to enjoy doing and benefit from. And we also offer the optional live sessions, so fortnightly, for asking questions and practicing exercises online. So if you have any questions to do with specific exercises that might be in the library, or it could be something that's content based as well. So as with all studies, there is an ethics process that has to be honoured before we start collecting data. We received ethical approval from Anglia Ruskin's ethics committee last month, so that's gone ahead as planned. But in terms of consent from the participants, that will be obtained before the study and in accordance with the school research ethics panel at Anglia Ruskin University. We've also, as you do with studies, conducted a small risk assessment, and this is so that we can minimise the chance of people feeling distressed, even though we believe this is going to be a small chance, but it's just so that everything has been accounted for. So in terms of participant requirements, we have a few participant requirements in order to take part in the study. We require you to be over the age of 18, have no prior intensive experience with mindfulness or body awareness techniques. This is so that we want to include people who might benefit from improving their body awareness. So we understand that some people might have knowledge on this already, especially mindfulness or different practices, but it's so that it's something new for you all and something that we believe you can benefit from. And the last requirement is not currently receiving support for mental health from the NHS or private healthcare, e.g. medication or therapy. Again, this is important in relation to the study because we don't want to interfere with other treatments that people may be having, and we want to make sure that the benefits that potentially might be seen throughout the study and when we collect data is due to the training program and not because of any other reason. So I've spoken about the course itself, the time commitment and participant requirements. We thought it'd also be important to tell you how we're going to maintain contact with you throughout the 8 weeks, especially as the course will be completed remotely. So even though it is online, we thought an element of interaction would be best. So whether that be interaction with the researchers or with each other. So we decided to create a Facebook group where you can ask questions and or discuss things to do with the course with other participants and the researchers. This isn't obligatory. It's just when we conducted our focus groups, one main element of feedback we received was to create a sense of connection, especially as it's been a tough year, and especially the beginning of this year with being in lockdown. We thought it'd be a good thing to have, or at least have the option for the participants, and also have an informal platform to ask questions. As I stated earlier, fortnightly live sessions where you can see the researchers face to face and discuss anything that you feel hasn't been answered. And then frequent emails and interaction from the researchers, for example, reminders to complete exercises and the release of course content every week. So we thought it'd be good to have this element. And additionally, support will be available either through the researchers or frequently sent links every week with contact details of mental health resources or signposting. So that's everything to do with the requirements, as I said. So the timeline for the pilot study, if you choose to participate, looks as follows. So from the 17th of April, consent in accordance with the research ethics panel will be obtained. That's when we'll collect baseline data. So as Ian said earlier, the questionnaires on body awareness, stress and well-being, as well as recording heart rate variability via the voucher app. In the questionnaires, and we're thinking prior as well, you'll all be emailed more in-depth instructions about the app, how to download it, how to use it, instructions to use it, FAQs as well in case there's any questions, so that you have as much information as possible. The course commences the following week, whereby you would engage with the educational videos and content, as well as practice body awareness exercises we've previously spoken about. So that's on the 24th of April. So I don't know if you heard Ian say it earlier, but the day we release the content, you have up to the following, so it would be every Saturday, the following Saturday to complete it. It's not something that has to be done on said day of release if that's not convenient for you. It's just that's the day we chose to release it. So that'll be completing every week for 8 weeks, would lead to the course itself concluding on the 19th of June. We then ask you again on that date for more data collection measures to be completed, the same questionnaires, so the surrounding stress, well-being, as well as HRV, so heart rate variability. You'll then be debriefed and thanked and entered into a draw to win a £50 gift voucher, as well as hopefully benefit due to everything you've learned. You'll be offered further support via the mental health support services if you so need it, and signposted just in case. So that's the timeline that we expect to go through. So here's a recap of everything I've discussed so far. So why we're doing this study: we're testing to see if improved internal body awareness helps you perform better in everyday life. How we're testing this: we're measuring the effects of an 8-week training program. And what you will be required to do is watch videos, do exercises, and submit responses to measures. So that's all the information we have for this evening, and the next steps for those that wish to participate in this study are as follows. We'll send out an email via the Innocence email address. If you haven't received an email so far, it's the joint email account we have for the project, which will include a Google form where you'll be registering your interest in the study. I might just put the link in the chat anyway, but if you can't access it due to the device you're on, then we'll send it in the email as well. When you receive this email, be sure to whitelist it so that it doesn't go into your junk box. This is because quite a lot of the emails and correspondence we'll have will be through that email address if you choose to take part. And just to stress that registering your interest isn't bound, and no part of the study will commence until you've completed the consent form, which will be the week before the course starts, so on the 17th of April. We plan on doing a Zoom session, which is likely to have all of the participants in before the week 1 of the course starting. So that will be in between the 17th and the 24th of April. So after you've completed the questionnaires, but before you actually start